Happy Sunday, friends. We're not outside today. We're actually currently in the office doing some work and getting some work done. We got goals to hit. I know y'all do too. And lately, of course, I do these Sunday shorts based off of the experiences I've been having lately, whether it's with other speakers in the industry or our students or myself. And I think lately, two things have happened. One person asked me, they were like, what is your 5-year goal? Like, what is the goal that is 5 years from now? And I'll be honest with y'all, I think I've told y'all before, I don't set goals that far out. I don't do that. I do these micro goals over time. For example, I'll use fitness as an example. So every year I like to pick a fitness goal. So last year I did 75 hard. This year I'm training for a half marathon. These are micro goals, right? That all kind of build up and lead to much bigger goals, right? Much bigger things that we're looking to accomplish, and maybe the overarching goals stay healthy, right? People hear that and you can't reverse engineer that. What does that mean? Be more specific, right? SMART goals. But that's why I set these micro goals. They are very specific. 75 hard this year, half marathon training this next year, things like that. So I challenge you to do the same thing in your business. You can definitely set those big outlandish goals, but make sure you're reverse engineering them so you can see the progress that you're making towards that goal. So maybe your goal is to make $120,000 in booked revenue. Okay, great. What do you have to do to reverse engineer that? And then I say all that to say, a lot of people ask, and lately I've heard it from a couple of different speakers and students in the industry, because we've been at some conferences recently, is, when my colleague or myself or other people are like, I'm a full-time speaker, and people instantly want to know the data behind that in terms of, how many gigs do you have to do to be full-time? That's the big question, is how many gigs do you have to do to be full-time? And when I came into the business and the industry, I had the same thought. I often hear people say, I want to do 2 gigs a month. Okay, great. That's awesome. That's 24 gigs a year, right? Is the mathing for all of you? Listen, my husband's a math teacher, not me. But is that 24 $500 gigs? Is that $24,000 gigs? Or do you want to do $10,000 gigs? So I'm challenging you. I say that because I want you to focus on a booked revenue goal versus number of gigs per month goal, because I even have this. Everybody has this. There are times in the year where you're going to have quite a few gigs, and then times in the year where you have zero. I'm looking at my calendar and I have nothing at this point for September. This is the only month out of this entire year where I have nothing. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with that, because I am focusing on a couple other things in the business, and this gives me time to really sit down and focus on that while also continuing to move the business forward, prospecting now into 2025. So that doesn't mean that things won't come up in September, because as y'all know, I speak in the youth market and schools are back in session, and I'm working with an assistant. So September will probably get a few things thrown in there with the school system. And that doesn't mean that things won't happen for you as well. It's just a matter of, when you're not having those times of, I just got off the road and did 4 gigs within 7 days in 4 different states. That's not always going to be the case potentially. So planning ahead and looking forward at booked revenue is really great, because it gives you the opportunity to see far out, because as you know, people tend to book opportunities 3 to 12 months in advance. So you're looking ahead now into the end of 2024, and then Q1 and Q2, and then potentially further on for that, depending on the organizations that you're speaking at. So I wanted to help you define your version of success today, because that's exactly what it is. Defining your version of success. It is so easy. I was just at a conference full of professional speakers of all different types: consultants, trainers, keynote speakers, workshop breakout speakers, big stage speakers, youth speakers. There's so many different types of speakers. And I'm hearing I do 10 events a year. I do 150 events a year. I do 192 exactly. There's just so many variances, even between me and my colleagues. I like to stay around 40 gigs a year. My colleague stays around 60 to 70. My other colleague does about 90. I think he did 92 in 2023. Exactly. And it's so easy to hear those numbers and be like, oh, am I doing enough? Is my message on demand enough? Why am I not getting booked and paid more often? I want you to keep your blinders on in this industry, because we oftentimes, yes, it is about us a little bit, right? This is our business. We care about it. We work for it. Yes, absolutely. But we work for our audience also. We have to keep them in mind and focusing on, they're the reason that we are so honored and grateful to do what we do because of our audience. Our audience exists. We want to serve them. So how often or what does that mean for you? There are so many things that you could be doing, so many stages you could be on, but I always check with myself too. Just because I could doesn't mean that I should, right? I recently turned down an opportunity because they didn't have a budget to pay me, and this was out of state. And it was a tough decision, but I offered to partner with them in other ways, right? And then what that looks like in the future, because that relationship is so important to me. It is so important because that will pay you tenfold when you nurture relationships, even when you don't end up working for them. So defining your version of success, and here's the next thing I want to challenge you with and tell you. Your version of success may get met, and it may get met quickly, sooner. So you may set a 5-year goal and hit goals in like 3 years. Success in and of itself is not a destination. It's an ongoing thing. It's ongoing. So that's why I like the micro goals, because when that little goal's over, it's like on to the next. I'm sure you've heard this before. Professional athletes are some of the people who, and I'm sure some of the professional athletes are watching this, and knowing some of them in this industry and knowing some professional athletes, this is where the struggle lies for them, is so young in their life, a lot of times under 30, they have peaked in their career and they hit the ultimate goal, right? Play in the whatever professional sport they're doing, NFL, Major League Baseball, soccer, swimming, all these Olympics, they've hit this main high tier goal. And then the question is, now what? Right? So you always have to wonder, like, what is that next level? And I've seen, again, speaking with some professional athletes, because I wouldn't want to speak for all of them. I can only speak on the conversations that I've had, but this is why a lot of them struggle after they're done, because they're like, well, now what do I do? And I've seen a lot of them step into speaking because they've told me specifically is that nothing gives them the goal setting or the ability to reach goals like being an athlete as speaking, which is always interesting to me. So that's a little side information for you. But I want you to constantly ask yourself, like, what is my version of success? And then reverse engineer that in the sense of, what do I have to do to get there? Like, what do I have to do to get to that point? And right now, I went into this business, ironically, as someone who loves to set goals. I'm a former athlete myself, so I'm always shooting for the next level. I didn't really have a goal with speaking, and I'm not even 100% sure I do still to this day, because the version of success that I have is just, it's happening, it's living, it's breathing, and it's always learning. And that's another thing that I really wanted to end with on this video is you've constantly got to be a student in this business. Any sort of entrepreneurial adventure that you seek out, you have to grow and learn from people who are steps ahead of you, whether that's personal development, professional development, reading books or doing podcasts or going to conferences and meeting people and learning from professionals that are where you want to be, et cetera, et cetera. Constantly growing. And I've learned so much about myself and the business that, I'm just getting to the point where, hiring an assistant and doing all these things that I never thought I would do, right? I never set out to make that a goal. I talk on the Sunday shorts with things I often tell myself, like, we really need to think about what that looks like 5 years from now and how do we reverse engineer that. So I challenge you today to define your version of success and be intentional about that. And really set the far out goal, but set the realistic goals too. And then blow your own mind while you do it, right? So that's another thing. So I want to challenge you to focus on booked revenue, not number of gigs. I want to challenge you to keep your blinders on because you're going to be seeing other people and hearing other people do other things, but keep it focused on your audience and really lean into them. And then just watch the momentum kick in as you define your version of success. So I hope all that made sense. That was really on my heart today. And I'll see you for the next Sunday short. Talk to you guys later. Bye.